Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you. So today I want to talk about comfort or abiding comfortably. In Pali, it's pasuvihara. That's P-H long A-S-U with the word vihara attached to it in a compound. And it's interesting to me because, we talk sometimes about comfort and I've shared how a number of years ago when visiting Ajahn, this was in 2019, if I remember correctly, right at the time when the Hermitage was coming into PBV's possession. And I was hesitant to leave the city and go to the mountains, to the forest. So I had all kinds of concerns. I mean, if you've been there, it's a bit on the rustic side. It was quite a bit more rustic before we started to upgrade things a little bit, but it was more than that. And Ajahn kind of litany, I think, over and over, he said, you have to let go of comfort. You have to let go of comfort. And sometimes we can hear something like that and also look at the suttas and the way sometimes the way monastics practice, and we think, wow, I really need to make my life less comfortable. But I don't really think that's quite right. I think those words really were appropriate to the occasion. That's what I had in my mind as I'm making that shift to live in the forest, which has been very beneficial. But I want to talk about this because even in the suttas, we can see the ways in which this idea of a comfortable abiding is talked about, is referred to, and also the importance of it for our practice. So one place where we see it is in the meal blessing, for example, the reflection that we use frequently, and many of you have heard, wisely reflecting, I use alms food, not for fun, not for pleasure, so on and so on. And at the end, it talks about, I'll eat, basically try to eat the right amount so that I can resolve or satisfy uncomfortable feelings and abide in comfort, abide in comfortable feelings. Because it's what happens when the body's hungry, right? It's uncomfortable. And if we eat foods that it can handle and the amount that it can handle, then we're comfortable. If we eat too much, again, we're uncomfortable. And they're, just noticing that kind of comfort is important to our being able to practice. This word also comes up, pasuvihara, when someone would want to, maybe someone is sick and they ask someone else to go to the Buddha, bow to the Buddha in my name and ask him, if he's healthy, if he's strong, is he abiding comfortably? Even the Buddha, traveling a lot, walking around northeastern India, living pretty rough in the beginning, even after giving up the unproductive, ineffective ascetic practices, it still had to be pretty rough in the beginning. They didn't have monasteries immediately. But once they did, then the Buddha accepted nice places to live. It's not like we have to, discard what's comfortable. We need that for enough support. So are you living comfortably? Are you comfortable? This is a very kind question. The Buddha will ask mendicants when he visits them if they've gotten enough alms food, if they're, like, are you comfortable enough, basically? And then he turns it. Let's see, I think there was one more thing I wanted to share there. Okay, before I turn it to a different level, there's one more place where this gets used that is not so apparent, but it's in the Vinaya, talking about, there are also references in the suttas. The Buddha made the rules oftentimes for the comfort of the good-hearted mendicants. It's the same idea for abiding in comfort, pasuvihara. And it's like there's physical comfort, but there's mental comfort. If you're living with monastics who are behaving inappropriately or maybe even dishonestly, or these kinds of things, not really following the Dhamma, it's very uncomfortable. So there are rules. We all know this, if we have the proper rules, if we have boundaries that try to help us be fair, decent individuals, behave in ways that are not harmful to others, there's some comfort in that. So this is also part of it. But then the turn I was going to discuss is where the Buddha is not just asking about the physical comfort or the mental comfort, but he talks about, like, have you gained any super normal states that lead to a comfortable abiding? This is one of the questions he asked Anuruddha, Kimbala, and Nandya, these three monks who eventually become arahants. And it's like, what's been happening? Are you getting deep meditation going? It's a pasuvihara meditation. Comfortable. It's comfortable. It's comfortable when we practice metta and we really feel that permeate our entire system. There's a kind of comfort. So the Buddha talks about it in those terms, and it shows up in a few other places too. There's a really lovely story in the Samyutta Nikaya about Chitta the householder. There's a whole small Samyutta dedicated to Chitta the householder. And he was one of the foremost householders because of his meditation practice. And he was very, very learned. Sometimes he would answer questions that the monks couldn't answer, and the monks would listen to him and appreciate his elucidating certain points on the Dhamma. So Chitta the householder in this case, this is in case you want to look it up at some point, Samyutta Nikaya 41, number 9. And Chitta the householder meets this very old friend, this friend he's had from long ago. And this friend became a naked ascetic. And he says to him, his name is Kassapa. There are so many, Kassapa is a very common name. And he says, how long have you been, he calls him venerable, how long have you been doing this? And he said, oh, it's been 30 years. And Chitta the householder says, so have you gained a comfortable abiding? And he says, no, all I have is nakedness, bald head, and the brush to sweep the seat I'm going to sit on. And apparently they had a particular kind of brush made out of peacock feathers that they would brush. You can imagine being naked. You're going to want to brush something before you sit on it. Maybe they should brush after too. I don't know. But the point is, no. And then this Kassapa, he asks Chitta, the householder, so friend, how long have you been doing what you've been doing, the white clothed lay person following the Buddha, basically an upasaka? And he says, yeah, it's also been 30 years. And then Kassapa says, so have you gained the kind of meditation that gives you a comfortable abiding? And Chitta, the householder, says, yeah, how could I not? I can, whenever I want, go into the first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana. And Kassapa says, can I ordain with the Buddha? And Chitta, the householder, takes him to some elder monks, and he tells them, this has been my friend for a long time, and he wants to ordain. And he says, I will be really energetic in making sure I'll provide all of his requisites, his food, his robes, and everything. And he gets ordained. Kassapa gets ordained. And then it says, and not long after, he becomes an arahant. And it's kind of like it starts with a comfortable abiding in a sense. And the Buddha, when he talked about letting go of or recognizing that the really austere, kind of brutal methods of practice don't work, and also indulging in sensual pleasures doesn't work. This gives us a clue around what comfort is useful, important, and where it starts to go off the track. So when Ajahn Gana is telling me to let go of comfort, he's really saying let go of attachment to your comfortable situation. Because when we are in a comfortable situation where we really have a lot of choice and we have a lot of things that help us be comfortable, there's nothing wrong with that. But if we're worried about losing it, if we're clinging to it, having to be a certain way, we're going to suffer. And it does hold us back. That kind of attachment to it. It's the problem is never in the objects. It's never in even the situation. It's always in our wanting to get rid of. That's where the trouble lies. That's what's so beautiful about the Dhamma, is that actually the way things work is we have choice. It's not about throwing out your comfy chair, your favorite spot to sit. It's about noticing if there's a clinging there. And how can we tell? One way that I found over the years that's been really helpful is to imagine what would happen if a fire came through and took everything right now. How would I feel? I don't have to wait for it to happen. I can work with this idea in a way that it's kind of an excavation, where you're uncovering the roots of our own kind of insidious clinging and craving. And then to really think about it. Okay, what would I really miss? What can I do to understand the nature of that clinging, that craving, and to recognize, what the real nature is of what I am craving and clinging to. I think there's also a bit of a caution in this reflection about not taking everything you hear, even from the Dhamma, even in the suttas, as absolutely applicable to you in full at this time. So you got to look at time and place. Like, if the body is getting older, if the body is not well, it needs more support. It needs more comfort in order to really practice. It's different, when I first started, even though it was kind of late, then how many years I was laying on the floor, sleeping on the floor, you know, for his practice style on a thin mat. And now I'm not doing that. Over 70, or it happened before that. And it's like, just notice the results of whatever you're doing. Notice what is it that helps you to stay alert? What is it that helps to motivate you and give you energy for the practice? Helps to have enough peace of mind, enough, spending time around the people that are supportive, that you have enough feeling of safety, enough feeling of comfort, enough comfortable abiding, but not going over that edge into fear of losing it, if that makes sense. So that's what I wanted to share. Just drop that idea in there. Know your own context and learn about your own mind in regard to how much is enough, how much is too much, where's the clinging. It's up to each of us to guide our own practice, to know what words really apply to us. Okay. What do you think about this or anything else Dhamma related? If it's something that's not Dhamma related, we're going to push it over into that territory real fast. So no worries. Marilyn?
First off, I keep wondering if there's anything that's not Dhamma related.
There's that. Well, there is. I mean, we can spend a lot of time with frivolous nonsense, but we can also quickly identify it as frivolous nonsense and bring it back to Dhamma.
I feel like you just gave me permission to do what I've been doing. And
Good.
I've been wondering about this, but it seems so effective. It just seems
Mhm.
so I've been meditating most of the time, lying down with my leg up.
Yeah, that makes sense in your case.
And I was quite surprised at how much more effective it is. It's like I can focus right down, like right, just almost immediately. It's like it takes off the cares in the world.
Yeah.
And that's me. I feel like anyway, it seemed, but then I would keep thinking, is this cheating? It seems so effective, it seems like cheating, but but I'm reminded that Jen Verdamo said too that we should, as we get older, we should be practicing lying down, meditating, because we're gonna at some point that's gonna be the only option, right?
Ah, true. But like you're experiencing, because of your situation with your leg, it really is beneficial and you really are alert.
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe 20 years ago, when you were maybe working too hard, not getting enough rest or whatever else, as soon as you lay down, you're out. You know? So it's really, we've got to really look at time and place. What is the situation that we're in and how does it affect us? Like you're finding this is really helpful. Well, that's important, evaluating it. And yeah, it's not cheating. This is why, it's so easy to have a ideal in mind. We should all be sitting in full lotus right now or something, so can have these ideals, even ones that aren't so, for our culture at least, feeling so extreme. And we can get caught up in that. But if we actually experiment, if we actually observe, and we don't cheat internally, because that's where the real cheating happens, when we kid ourselves, when we're in a delusionary fog, just because we want to do what we want to do. That's a different thing. We got to, like, be pretty on it, you know don't let the personality get away with things that are going to really bring trouble in the end. But don't take away things that are really supportive and helpful either.
There was a little bonus that came with it too, which is that I've always, for a long time, had a nap in the afternoon. But now when I lie down for a nap, I think, oh, I can meditate. Like, because it's like you're in the position to meditate.
Ah.
It's like nap. It's not really a nap, it's a meditation in the afternoon. That's quite nice. And again, it's effective. It's like it's changed things quite a bit.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Marilyn.
Thank you.
And Ling?
Thank you, Ayya. What do you think about balance the consistency, like consistency in practice, either being wholesomely restrained, practicing regularly, with finding the comfortable abiding, being constantly having. I don't know if I'm clear. I feel like I can't find that consistency in my
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, well, first thing we have to acknowledge is that things change all the time. And situation changes, our body, our health, our mental, environment, whatever is changeable. And again, this idea, when you mention consistency, the easiest example for me is whether or not the monastery has a strict schedule and you all show up and do it, day after day after day, or it has something that's more relaxed and people more practice on their own and they may practice at different times. And again, it really depends on the situation, the time and place. So there are times when maybe everyone, I don't know, but many people benefit from that kind of strict regimen. And then there are times when that's just exhausting and doesn't really help a person progress. they need to have the flexibility to meditate maybe in the middle of the night because they're not sleeping, or at other times when, or just practice in general, any aspect of it, they need more flexibility. So you got to know yourself again. It's really about what's going on. And I don't know if that's really what you meant. You might have meant just how do I consistently practice? Well, my observation of you over these years is that you're practicing pretty much all the time. I mean, this is what most of us, I think, who are here today are doing. We're reflecting on Dhamma. We're trying to apply the Dhamma, regardless of whether we're at work or at home or in conversation or resting, or, is this entertainment really wholesome, or is this, really what I want to be doing with my time? And all these kinds of questions. I mean, most people who are engaged here are pretty sincere and committed. And so, I mean, the things to notice is, does it help to have, in other words, we're not going to have comfortable abiding all the time, but we do want to give ourselves the support needed to cultivate our meditation, our samadhi, cultivate our sila, and cultivate the ability to investigate and see the Dhamma. And as long as we're doing that, we're really finding those ways, that's really what's needed. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I think, thank you, Ayya. And I actually was exactly the one that you mentioned. This year, I just woke up in the middle of night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, like normal schedule, which I hoped to set up, just all over the place. And yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've seen some monastics just really exhausted because their body's on a different schedule than the monastic schedule. And, does that make sense? Is that helping their practice? It's just something to reflect on and keep the proper goals in mind. When you're dying, is it really going to matter whether you kept the schedule or not? What's going to matter is whether or not you really saw the Dhamma, you're really practicing the Dhamma. That's what I think. Holly?
So I like the simplicity of your guided meditation, and it kind of supported my current little focus of trying less and being present more. Is the sticker on my altar when I sit down.
Mm-hmm.
So that imbuing the body with loving kindness, just that part of that sutta, it's just so simple. And I have found myself generally, like we drove down here 3 days driving down to Tucson, and it was the easiest transfer I've ever done. Everything's just kind of gone really smoothly. There's some reasons for that, but I think I'm trying less.
Bravo.
Oh,
Yeah, bravo. Yeah, that's great. And again, the right effort. What is it? It's similar to this idea of how much comfort. It's like finding the effort that keeps us, really in the game, seeing the Dhamma, developing the heart, developing our skills, but without this kind of driven intensity that has a lot of stress in it, or expectations, ideals that are destined for disappointment, but instead to really like opening ourselves up to what comes from a much deeper strata in consciousness. The guidance really is there if we're silent enough to listen, silent and quiet enough. Yeah. Thank you, Holly. Sometimes we hear these really rousing Dhamma talks and it inspires us, kind of kickstarts us into a new phase of practice, and that's really good. And sometimes what we need is something more calming, more encouraging, and so one thing that's so amazing about the times we're living in is that we can actually reach not very far, just this little device that is sometimes can be so distracting and unhelpful, but can be extremely helpful, and find the words of encouragement that suit the situation we're in at the time. It's really wonderful. Yes, Regina?
I have a fair number of headaches or backache. And my experience is that it is a real balance act to meditate with headache or meditate with backache. And loving kindness, metta, helps a lot. But it's still a balance act because I think when I'm in a painful state, my temptation is to just wish to make it go away rather than having it part of the picture and embrace it lovingly as something that's simply here. And rather than the alternative would be to either take painkillers, which I do, depending on what the situation is and how bad the pain is, or just want to curl up and go to sleep. And that has its place too.
Yeah.
And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about this.
Well, I feel like you're on the right track. I mean, it's assessing what's happening and noticing that wish to turn away from it, to push away. And that's the part to work with, right? The push, the pull and the push of our desires and our aversions. And then, when we like practicing in the way that the guided meditation was, with that space for reflection and allowing the responses to come from deeper inside, that's bypassing the conditioning, bypassing the personality. I don't know if bypassing is the right word. It's like setting aside the personality, the conditioning. So part of that conditioning is just that we're living in this animal body where we don't want pain and we want pleasure. It's understandable. But when we can, let the intuition kind of give us this guidance, then like, well, when to just put everything down and rest, when to I mean, introducing some kind of support like pain killing or hot bath or whatever. None of that is wrong. To really try to make the body comfortable. I think you already know. You said it. Yeah. Do what you can to support the body and the mind. in a way that you can stay alert as much as possible until it's time to really rest, and then really rest. I like this idea of give it all you've got, no matter what you're doing, even when it's resting, even when it's kind of like letting go of our negative judgments about ourselves, and open up to more kindness, like giving it all you've got. The story of the man who came to visit Ajahn Chah, and he came from a long distance, and he didn't get a chance to talk to Ajahn Chah, and he had a schedule and he had to leave soon. And so he was waiting in the area for his ride, I think, and he was sweeping. And Ajahn Chah kind of came up behind him, and then he realized it was Ajahn Chah, and Ajahn Chah just said to him, give it all you've got. Whatever you're doing, give it all you've got. And those words of advice were really life-changing for him. And it's like when we say give it all you've got, then especially our conditioning might be, I really have to put in extreme effort, and I really have to like go, but maybe not. Maybe that's not what giving it all you've got is in this moment, in this context. And that's for us to discover. What does it mean to really put in the right effort, the effort that brings the results of peacefulness? So maybe that's enough for right now.